Hello guys and welcome to another building session. My name is Guan and this is the part 2 of the mini-series that I've started on how to make a jet fighter in CREY. Now before you get too dizzy from me moving around the plane so much, this is where we ended in the last video that I will have a link to in the description. And as you remember, we can bank and move around the plane and the camera kind of follows in a nice way. But today we're going to improve so much, and let's get started with that. Alright, here we are. Now the plane is gone because it is out in the horizon somewhere. Let's get it back with the freeze reset. Alright, so first off today, we're going to start by improving the camera that we made last time. We want it to be more smooth. We want it to follow the camera in a much more easy on the eye way, and we can decide if we want it to tilt when you're banking with the plane or if we just want it to follow you on the same angle all the time. But let's start making the setup. So here we have the camera, and the camera right now is glued to the base of the plane. What we're going to do is we're going to put a midsection between the camera and the base that is going to give us a pretty nice effect. So let's go to the library and CREY gameplay props and find the gameplay prop, the Seeker. Alright, I'm gonna turn on the grid. So the Seeker is a really nice gameplay prop. It can be used to accomplish a lot of different things. One of the most common ways of using it is to have an object follow another object, which is also why it looks like a pair of binoculars. So the Seeker, if we go to settings, it's going to follow a target. It can be a player or it can be something that you've drawn a target wire towards. You can decide whether it should look at the target that it's following, and there's some axis restraints and some different ways it can rotate. So let's start by saying that it should not follow any player, it should instead follow a targeted object. Now that means that we have to draw a target wire to the object that we want it to follow. Now we don't want it to follow the plane, we just want it to follow the model, because the fake plane underneath here, which all the controls are glued to, we wanted to follow that because the plane is already glued to that anyway, as you can see with the yellow wire here. So just having everything go to the same object is so much easier. Now the Seeker is going to follow at a really fast speed because we do not want the camera to fall behind. So let's set it at 250. That way we know that it's always going to follow our plane, because the actual speed of our plane is 150. Now if we go back into the settings, the time to full speed, that's if you want some kind of acceleration effect, let's just put that for 0 now. We want it to look at, because that's gonna give us the effect of, yeah, you'll see it in a second. The turn speed determines how fast it's going to adjust to the position of the target. So we're gonna set that at 100, which is fairly high, I would say. Rotate vertically, that's fine for now. We want it to follow the plane on all axes, which is why we're gonna leave all of these axes on. Alright, so the camera should no longer be glued to the base of the base of the plane. Instead, it should now be glued to the Seeker, like that. Now one thing that I like to do, and I'm going to show you this because it's pretty good practice, I would say, when you're working with stuff such as Seekers that will not show anything in the actual game world when you're playing. In order for you to kind of understand what is happening, it's nice to put in a primitive like this, because you can see a primitive if you want to see it. Let's make it red, and let's glue that to the Seeker, which means that we can now glue that to the primitive instead of the Seeker. So it's basically the same as gluing it to the Seeker. We've just put put in an extra entity here that's going to give us some visual representation of where the seeker is in space. Alright, so actually this should give us a pretty nice effect. Let's try to press the playtest button here. Oh, interesting. So something is not following the right way. This one is set to follow the target with a really fast speed. That should be nice. Oh, I see. I glued the connector. So the connector should not be glued to anything. It's the camera that should be glued to this, to the little sphere. Let's try again. Right, here we go. So now you can see that the red circle is representing, or the sphere is representing where the seeker is in space. And now when we turn, it gives us a nice effect where the plane is actually turning a little bit ahead of us and we're kind of lagging behind a little bit. Now I think we can really exaggerate this effect if we take the seeker into the settings and set the turn speed to much lower value. Then we should not be able to follow the wow. Now we're having a really big troubles following the plane. So let's get it back to 100. Now that could be a nice effect for another scenario, what just happened. But for now, let's put it at 100 because we know that looks good. Alright, so now we have a nice camera. By the way, if you want to remove this circle, this sphere, we just go to settings and set it to invisible. Now we can always enable it again if we're messing around with the camera and the seeker settings, because that would give us a really nice reference point as to where the seeker is when we're playtesting and looking at what we're making. So the next thing we want to do is making the flaps move. If you remember from the last video, at the end I said that we were going to have these nice looking flaps move around in the air when we're playing. Now, in order for us to accomplish this, we're going to need a gameplay prop called Joint Rotator. So I'm gonna put on grid. So the joint rotator is interesting and useful. What you do is you go to settings and then you can see there's an on angle and an off angle. Let me just position it in a situation where I can actually see what's going on here. Like that. So right now I have to unfreeze as well. So as you can see, it moves. Let's put the transition time lower so it's more apparent. So it moves, when I turn it on and off, it moves between two different angles. So you can see it moves between 90 and 0 with a specific time. And that's exactly what we're going to utilize here. So we're going to rotate it in a way that it can rotate this particular flap. Right. So the way we need to rotate it is, by the way, before we do anything, let me go to the directional mover and turn that one off so that we can play without having it frozen and just see the plane, because that's nice for reference. So what we want is, we want it to be like so, and like that, I believe. Let's just see here. So we want it to start at 0 when it's on. Hold on. Actually, I think we want it to have the other way around, like that. So now it should be the way we want it, because we want it to go this way and this way, right? We can test it out. So the flap is this larger area and then this smaller area. The reason why I have this smaller area is because I use it as a pivot point for the flap to rotate around. So if we glue it to the flap and we now rotate the flap, the base of the, like that, then you can see that it rotates nicely around this. Actually no, actually that's wrong. I think I use it to, yeah, I use it to hide I use it to hide what I showed you just before. So when you move this, it kinda hides inside this space, which is nice. Alright, so let's test it out here. If we draw an effect wire from the joint rotator, by the way, if I sound a little exhausted, it's because it's 90 degrees here in Denmark, and I am sitting here with all the windows shut, and the fan is off because I don't want it to make too much noise. So, on and off. Let's go. On and off. Oh, it's at 0. So let's put it at a angle like this. Let's say that when it's on, it should go to a 30-degree angle. Now the reason why we want it to be like that is because of course we don't want this to be affected by nothing. It has to be affected by when a player actually pushes something. So these two flaps, we're going to use those for when you're banking. So let's find the banking inputs, which are these, and then let's just use this one for now and give it power like so. So that means when we're pressing the A button, the A key, we're going to be banking, and this one is going to go up. Perfect. Now let's copy this up, just like that. Nope, just like that. And we're going to have this, we're going to turn it off first, it goes back to 0. Then we're going to affect it as well. And now of course this one we want to have the flap go the different direction. So if we turn it on, like so, it goes down. Alright? So let's say that now that would be the other input for when you're banking, which goes into this one. Like that. Alright. So now if we press 9 to move the plane, if we go this way, you can see the flap goes up. Oh, see, here's a problem, and the problem is that we did not glue the joint rotators to any part of the plane, which means they do not follow the plane and they get misaligned really quickly, and the rotation gets misaligned and everything just looks bad. So up and down. I'm actually not sure whether it should be going up or whether it should be going down depending on the direction, but we're just gonna say that this is how a plane works. At least it's going to look almost like how a plane works. Alright, so for the other one we are going to do the exact opposite, so that when we go to the left, this one will go up and this one will go down. And when we go to the right, this one will go down, this one will go up, or something like that. But I was thinking that I would do the entire left side of the flaps and then just skip the right side, because a lot of this is just doing exactly the same. So this was the first one. Let's go to the next one. Alright, let's take the bottom one here. Now, as you can see, this last part of the plane here has kind of an angle to it, and we do need to match that somewhat with the rotators. So let's say that this is not quite. I'm gonna turn off the grid here because this one needs to be in freehand, I think. Like that. This is almost, if you can see the plane here, it almost extends into the same angle as the base here of the rotator. So that's nice. Now here I do actually think I have a base for the plane. Oh. Yeah, I do. And that is helpful here. So let's affect not to the outer part, but to the inner part that is almost impossible to see. Alright. Yes. And these flaps, the two here on the back, they're supposed to move when we go up and when we go down. And that's these input triggers that we have here in the back. So let's draw a power wire from this one to, let's say, this one, and let's draw a power wire from this one to this one. Now we can always adjust if we think it's going the wrong, if it's going up when we go down, or if it's going down when we go up. Doesn't matter too much right now. We just want to make sure that the logic of it is working. So when we go this way, you can see the flap goes. So there's a bit of misalignment here as well, and I wonder why that has happened. It is of course because we did not glue the rotators to the base of the plane. Alright, so when I go down, it goes down. When I go up, it goes up. And it does that very nicely. Perfect. Alright. For the last piece of the puzzle here, we're going to make these moves move, and they're supposed to move when you turn left and right with the plane. So that would be the input triggers at the very front. Let's get the joint rotator out first. So I guess we can use these guys as well. Let's place them somewhere that it makes sense. So, whoop, gonna need the rotation grid for this. Make them. Oh, gonna take a pair of new ones. Seems they're actually rotated a little bit, or is it just me? Anyway, we can fix that easily. Alright, so once again, we have to match the joint rotator's rotation with the actual rotation of the object that we're rotating. So, if I could just get both of them like that, and I'm gonna do this without assistance from the grid. Alright, so on this axis, let's see. Okay. So more or less the same angle, and it's fine. I mean, the difference you're gonna have here between being perfect and not being perfect is whether maybe a small piece of this one, if I could just get the base of it in here, like that. If this one, Jesus, oh, come on. Alright, so if this one kind of is a bit skewed, like so, like these are the kind of things that will happen, and if you don't worry too much about it, you can just do most of it in freehand. Also, there's a base here that I'm going to use. I'm not going to use the actual flap. I think the reason why I'm not doing this is because I can maybe show you on these ones. You see, it's like the rotation is not looking very good at all. It kind of has to have a pivot point, which is why I'm using this part in here, like that. Now this time I'm actually going to remember to glue them to the plane. Alright. So, of course they also need some power, and now when I'm going left, well, you know, never mind. I'm not gonna try to figure it out right now. I'm just gonna make sure that it does what I want it to do. Alright, so left, you can see that it moves outwards, and when I'm going to when I'm going to the left, it moves to the left, and when I'm going to the right, it moves to the right. I'm not sure that's the behavior we want. Maybe we want it reversed. But now at least you can see, if I really quickly just take the camera, go into settings, press camera test start. Let's go a bit closer to get a better look of what we've made. Like that. And we press play test here. Now you can see when we go upwards, downwards, this right one moves very well in the back. When we bank, the right one also moves very well up and down. When we turn to the sides, the right one also moves. So now we have some nice piece of flaps, and I'll see you in a short while while I just adjust the left side of the plane. Alright, so here we are, and it looks like we're done. I'm gonna put some speed back on the plane, We're gonna hit 9 to go to playtest, and let's have a look. So when we go up, the flaps on the back move. When we go up and down, when we turn to the left, the back ones move, and when we're banking, stuff moves as well. Alright, nice. So that's a very cool effect, something that's gonna give a lot of life to the plane. There's one thing though I can see is that the flaps are going down into the missiles, and we don't want that. So what we're going to what we're going to do is we're going to take the missile boxes here that are directly beneath it, and we're going to simply we're going to move them out, further out on the wing. Let's see, something like here. That should be fine. Let's press. So when we're going to the sides, no longer cuts into the missile because it's on the front, and that's fine because it still looks like a plane. Good, very nice. Now the next thing we want is we want to make the exhaustion burst out on the back of the plane. So let's start. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna go to the library in primitive, and this time I'm going to take a cone shape. I'm gonna rotate it 90 degrees. Well, yeah, 90 degrees. Move it out here, bring it down to the plane. I'm gonna scale it a little bit. I'm gonna have to turn off the grid to get it where I want it to. Scale it a little bit more. And now I'm going to stretch it outwards like that. So it kind of has a nice exhaustion look to it, at least shape to it. Alright, and I'm going to take this ring right all the way in here. Now that's really hard to see, but the purple ring here, I'm gonna right click that one. I'm just gonna take the color code from this one. I'm going to double click and color code in like so. So we have a nice purple thrust, but we need to make it a bit more impressive. So what we can do is we can take this one, copy this exhaustion burst that we have, make it a little bit smaller, and make it a little more blue, a little darker, just to give it a bit of nuance when it's... Yep. Alright, and I'm gonna let it stay out here for now, because what we need is a gameplay prop. We need the hider. If we place the hider here, you can see if it's not frozen, at least. Let's just make sure the plane doesn't move again. If it's not frozen, you can see that the hider will start to kind of dissolve everything that it touches. So what we can do is we can go to the settings of the hider and choose that it should only react on a targeted prop, and then we can target what we want to be hidden, or at least have a different opacity. We can change this to a level that we like. 50% looks good. And now, first I'm going to box. I'm going to take this one and add to a box to the center one. I'm going to press B and do the same with this, and I'm going to do it with the hider as well. I just want to make sure that everything is in the same box. The reason why I'm doing it to this one before I put it inside is because when you have things inside of other things, you know, it's hard to target it. Something like that. Alright, so now it has kind of a core, and that's nice. But there's one more effect that we want to do here, and that is we want to have another gameplay prop, the lift. Now the lift is incredibly handy at creating gameplay. Anything that you want to move up or down, or it's just very useful to use the lift. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to settings, to the lift, and we're going to define, just going to see if I can find the position where I can actually see the lift. Right, so we're going to set a position. See what it does, it moves back and forth. Now we're going to have a really low transition time here, I think. So let's try 0.1. And we want it to move not that far ahead, more like this. and we wanted to continue to do this. So we go to the cycle and we choose repeat. Now it has this effect, which is of course very similar to, I guess, kind of similar to when a rocket is moving. Let me just add it to this one as well. Freeze reset and unfreeze it. Alright, so as you can see it had to fade, so let's go to the hider and say the transition time here should be 0 so that it starts slow. Now I don't like this big gap there is here, so I suggest that we start with the inner one, largen it a bit, move it into the actual exhaustion so that it has to move out a bit, and let's do the same here. I mean, it doesn't need to be perfect at all, just kinda wanted to cover the... I don't know if this looks good at all, let's try. I mean, I guess from the camera it's gonna look pretty good. Okay. So, I'm going to box this one by pressing B. I'm gonna put it inside the same box as everything else that we used here. Yeah. Let's try to make the camera more in a position that we like. Let's take it something like this. Not too far away, not too close. Alright, let's go. That kinda looks like a burst to me. Maybe it's a bit too strong. It might be a bit too strong. But then again, it does look kinda cool actually. Let's keep it that way. Let's keep it like this. Alright, so that was the burst. The next thing we're going to do is a booster. So when you're flying around like this, and when you then hit shift, you're supposed to increase your speed quite a lot. And we're going to accomplish that as the last thing for this video. Alright, so how do we create a boost? It's kind of an ability. What we need is of course something to register when you click a button or a key. Now we're gonna use the shift key because we have it, well, okay, so it's actually the one called run, because right now it's called run, but it's because the main character, he speeds up and runs when you press shift. So this is actually shift right now. So when you press shift, now doing this is actually incredibly easy. We are actually just gonna take another directional mover like the one that already moves the plane. I'm gonna press it here, put it here. Let's actually keep them nice and tight together here. So when we press shift, it's going to power our directional mover. The directional mover is going to target the base of the plane just like everything else, and it's also going to be glued to the base of the plane just like everything else. And so the base movement of the plane is 150. Now if we apply or if we target the same object with a different directional mover, it's actually just going to multiply, no, it's actually just going to add the values on top of each other, which means that if I say it 100 here, when you press shift, it's going to fly with 250, because it's going to be 150 and 200, 100 and plus 150, which is 250. And that should be about it. Really simple. So I'm flying, I'm pressing shift. Alright, so I guess we need to be able to see it. Yeah, alright, there we go. So I'm pressing shift, and some time afterwards the plane flies out into the distance, and that's most likely because we have some kind of transition time of this second. No, we do not. That is strange. Give me 5 seconds to figure this out. Okay, so it works. It works, it's just really hard for us to tell right now. So what's happening here is when I press shift, it's going to take 1 second for it to go to its maximum speed, and now it's moving much faster. Then I'm releasing shift and it moves a lot slower. Now if I'm banking, and I'm bursting, it looks like the camera is having a hard time following, which is interesting because it gives this really crazy effect. But the reason why it's not following, I guess, is a bit strange, because maybe we need to increase the turn speed a little bit here. But I think we're just gonna keep it like this for now, because it's not really that bad of an effect. I think it looks kind of cool that when you're banking away, you kind of have to manage. So yeah, you see. So I increased the turn speed, and that in turn made the plane stay within our view frame when we are bursting. So it's hard to see that we're bursting because there's not really any objects. I can do that real quick. I can go to weld and I can place these humongous cliffs. One here. And wow. One here. And one here. And this one here. Alrighty. Let's go. Alright. Perfect. So, now when we move, this is our default speed, our normal speed, and when we hit shift, things doesn't seem to increase that much. Oh yes, it does. So it takes 1 second for it to kind of charge up, I guess. Sorry, what we could do is we could also just turn this up to 200, and I'm sure that would give us an effect. So I'm boosting 200. Yep, see you. So it is working. It may not be as noticeable right now, but what can we do to make it more noticeable? First of all, let's just really quickly go back to 100. So what can we do? We can do a couple of things. First of all, we can take this exhaustion burst 5/6 to get some grid on, and we can put it right on top of the other one. We can increase it like that, and we can give it a really shiny blue color, and we can copy our hider here. Now this hider is only going to target the outer one, and we need this one to be off, right? We need it to be off because, no, sorry, we need it to be on. Oh, things are frozen. I get it. I am really battling the heat right now. So let's turn off the primary directional mover like that, so the plane stays in frame. Good. Now you can see that it's completely gone, the blue thing we made, because we want it to be completely gone. Like so. And we need another one. Just gonna make sure that I can see it right here. That says that it's at 40. Wait, 0.4, 0.4, like that. Because this one is going to be turned on and this one is going to be turned off. See? Because when this one is off, the other one comes into effect, which gives us a very strong beam. So how do we accomplish this? We're going to need something called an inverter. Sorry, we can't use the inverter because it's not on live yet. Huh. Let's use the connector then, because the connector is such a useful tool. Alright, so the connector, we used it in the last video for the camera. We had a connector that was always at 0, which means it always sends power. But now we're going to use it for something more interesting. So this connector is going to power the hiders, and we're going to send a signal from the boost input trigger to the connector. Now this means when we click shift, it's going to send a signal to this one, this connector, and this connector then knows that it has 1 in the input. Now this one only sends power when it's at 0, which means it's going to send power to these guys when we press shift. Now let's just try it with 1 at a time. Like that. Alright. So I press shift. Oh, it's not following. Of course it's not following. Because it needs to be boxed here. Alright. So when I press shift, it comes. And when I let go, it disappears. Alright, I didn't like how it just appeared instantly, so let's give it a 1 second. Actually, I don't think we need the second hider. Well, no. I think that's perfectly fine. The way it is. I don't know why I thought we needed a second one. Let me just box this one as well. So everything is nice and grouped together. So now we have a boost. And another effect we can add here is we can go to gameplay props and we can go to the animator. The animator is such a useful gameplay prop and such a simple one as well. If you want to make barrels float in the sea surface, if you want to make things jump up and down, you know, you have all these cool animations that will just work. We're gonna use the one called shake. Now let's reduce the scale of the shake, making it into a very small shake. Let's also do something about the transition time, making it a small and fast shake, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to say when you press shift, that will power our animator, just to reset it, and then that one will affect our camera. Now, I'm guessing that you can see what this is going to do. It's going to shake the camera when we burst, making it even more obvious. Now I can see that we need to affect from we need to affect from the left to this one as well. That was the thing. There we go. Alright. Perfect. So let's go. Press. We're moving. We got our nice boost. It's really, really powerful. And yeah. Alright. So that's about it for this video, I think. The last thing I wanted to do was to show you how to make a booster with a nice camera effect and a nice exhaustion effect. And now we have all the flaps going on. Let me just turn on the default one so that we can fly around. Alright, so let me know if you want to see a third installment of this series. I was thinking that we could do how to make a winning condition and a losing condition, because as you can see I can fly right through these objects with no problems at all. In the original game that I'm working on, if you remember, there were these medals or badges that you had to pick up while you were flying around. I can also show you how I designed that system and how that works, because that's actually something that makes flying around even more fun if you have an objective. For sure, if you have any other ideas or any other thing that you want to see, go ahead and let me know on Discord or in the comments of this YouTube video. And other than that, guys, I will see you in the next video.